Welcome to the Good Intentions Show, coming to you live on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions one intention at a time. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Yes, this is the Good Intentions Show, where you will meet people who live life intentionally and hear about things they're not telling you in the mainstream media. And now, here's the truth seeker, the snake charmer, a legend in his own mind, broadcasting live all over the universe, your host, Mr. Tim Ray.
All right. Good morning, everyone out there in the conscious media land. I'm Tim Ray, your host of the Good Intentions Show. Sitting next to me, Mark Stephen Pooler, who's also our co-host today. Isn't this exciting? 2 for the price of 1. What do you all think of this? Mark, welcome.
Very excited.
Welcome aboard, Mark. I'm just very excited about having you here, and more impressed and excited about the guest you're bringing on. Her name is Saras Griffiths, and she's a sexual abuse trauma expert, and we're going to be talking about a very difficult and emotional topic: sexual abuse and living beyond it, life after sexual abuse, going through it, and what that all entails. So, you guys, if you are ready for a challenging topic, and also a topic that's so, I think, on epidemic levels today, or always has been, but is becoming aware that it needs to be addressed. And as Ross Perot said, the late Ross Perot, by the way, everybody knew he died the other day. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he said it's time to, everybody knows about the crazy in the basement, right? But nobody wants to do anything about it. So same thing with sexual abuse. It's always there, but no one ever addresses it. And today we are. So hang on to your hats and get ready for a very informative and enlightening show. Also, we got Mark. Say hello to all our friends in 99.1 FM land, as well as Kentucky and Ohio, WTTA 101.2. In Metro Atlanta, Talk 10 as well. And excellent, guys, to do thing today is to download our app, uimediaapp.com. uimediaapp.com. We have thousands are rolling in every day. We are launching at our launch party July 20th. Mark, you should be coming to that, man. We should be having you flying all the way from London, all the way from Birmingham.
I have been getting the notifications thinking I would love to be at that event. So the next event came to me in. I really want to get back to the United States.
All right. Well, listen, we will hold you to that. So, guys, July 20th, it's in 7 days, basically, or 9 to 8 days, I should say. It's right around the corner. So plan on now. Go to the Eventbrite, secure your spot. Hundreds of people are rolling in and showing up. The VIPs, actually, I think it's full. We're showing how to open it up for like 5 more seats. So if you haven't secured your ticket on the VIP, you may be out of luck, but just check it out. Go to the VIP on Eventbrite under United Intentions, as well as share if you said you're interested in going, put a going on your Facebook page there, because we'll have a better count for everyone, as well as you want to secure your spot. So looking forward to that. You can always call the office at 678-495-4345 about our conversation today, or want to learn more about the event and everything else we offer here at the foundation. One other thing I want to mention, we got Ride the Vibe today, 6 p.m., right? Michael Litton's rolling in with guitarist Stephen Gustafson, my bad, from the band 10,000 Maniacs. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? One maniac's enough. Who needs 10,000 of them? So, what else we got here? I think that's pretty much it rolling in. I don't want to get too much. I just want to mention one thing about the community. As we roll out this app, and we're going to be, it's got to actually be in the App Store as well, not just a smart app online. We're building our community, and so you're going to want to sign up. It's a free community for now, so you want to sign up, get your profile filled in. You can start watching when we roll out by next week, having the same experience you have on Facebook, you'll have on our app when you're interacting with people watching their shows. So it's going to be incredible. And they're also working on the intention process, how to create, track, and manifest your intentions. It's going to be one-of-a-kind apps and communities, so you're going to want to get involved now. Without further ado, Mark, do you want to introduce and bring in our special guest, Saras Griffiths?
I do. Sarah is a great entrepreneur. She's a great business mind, and she comes from a great place of helping others with trauma and abuse. Sarah Griffiths, welcome to the United Intentions
I need
Foundations
my
and
phone.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Let's get started, Sarah. We've got so much to share today. Talk about your childhood a little bit. Go back to, I know you were heavily bullied. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think that's really where obviously working with trauma has come in for me. It's from the trauma I had in my own background. And it's interesting because my trauma didn't happen in my home. My trauma actually happened at school where I was bullied over the course of a few years for being poor. So obviously the thing for me there, I was totally trapped. There was nothing I could do about it. It wasn't anything about who I was or anything I could control. But it had an incredible impact on me at that age. Basically destroyed me as a person because it just created this negative blueprint for me of who I was. And I allowed that to run my life until I was 45.
Mm. Wow, that's. I mean, you talk about a trauma in that situation. Did you know when this was going on, the effects it was going to have on you?
I had absolutely no idea, no. And all I knew was that I went through my high school years then. This all happened in junior school. And as I went into high school, all I knew was that I didn't know who I was. I didn't have any social skills. I always felt as if I wasn't good enough, as if I couldn't fit in, as if no one would want to be with me. I just had this concoction of feelings that I had no idea what to do with. And I had no idea what to do with it until I was 45. And I nearly committed suicide as well. Yeah.
You go, Tim. Sorry.
No. Jump in, Mark. And I know you're co-hosting from the UK, which is really fascinating. So just jump in, and I'll follow your lead.
I can totally relate to that, Sarah. I was bullied too, and it does stay with you for a long time. So I can totally understand how that's carried on through later down in life, and that really can affect you. Tell us a little bit about later in life and what led to suicide attempt.
Yeah, I mean that was really the ongoing effect. I mean, I went through my whole life up until 45, and on the outside, I guess people would say that I was successful. I had a good job. I always achieved a little bit more than was average. But for me, inside, I just got to the point. You have to understand that because of the way I was thinking about myself, our brains are elastic. And obviously, when we have these thought processes, they just get deeper and deeper and more embedded. So this became more traumatic and more real for me. I didn't know at the time I was creating it myself and that I could do something about it. And I just got to the point where I had so little self-confidence and I couldn't see how this could change. And I just hated myself. And I just wanted to die. It was the only way out that I could see. Yeah, very significant.
Oh, yeah, extremely. I mean, you're talking about, as a kid, as a child, you don't realize about what the impact is because you think this is normal. You're taught to believe this is normal or this is okay, and I hear it over and over again from every abuse victim that, part of them, there's like something, a little bit of voice is saying this is not okay, but it was so small because you've given up so much authority to the adults. And we just think that, okay, and then it becomes normal. And then it starts over a period of time. It's not a feeling of, it's not right, especially if it's a trauma and more serious abuse, and more than just a lighter sexual abuse. I mean, more like these predators befriend you, and then they share, good words to you rather than this real serious abusive, physically abusive as well type of situations. Which one was yours? Was yours more befriending, or was yours more of a serious abuse?
No, mine was children. Mine was children at school
Right.
who just completely. I was poor. I was unfortunately what happened was I was at school, and they grouped us then by our ability, and I was very clever. So I was in a group of children, and it's just their demographic was different to mine. They had more than me. They looked different. They had better, more expensive clothes. We didn't have uniform. They had more of them. Their mums had cars. You know, we're talking about a long time ago. We're talking about 1973 in Britain, when
Right.
everyone was still recovering from the war, literally.
Right.
That's how people still talk about it. And it was just unfortunate that was the group I was in at school, so I couldn't remove myself. I couldn't sit somewhere else, and obviously I was vulnerable. One of the big things I remember was them having sweets every day, and I didn't have them. And if you're in a group of children and they've all got sweets every day and you've got nothing to share, they're going to reject you. And they're not just going to reject you, they're going to tease you for being rejected.
But also, as well, Sarah, how that would have made you feel about yourself and your
Oh,
self-worth, that you
exactly.
didn't have the things that they had. I can totally relate to that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have had to face that as well, and that's a hard thing as a child to have to face. So I
Because you
totally
can't do
relate.
anything. And then those feelings of being powerless and being vulnerable, that's your major thought process about yourself. And you just carry it through your whole life. It doesn't just apply to, I haven't got sweets, I'm powerless and vulnerable. That becomes through your whole life.
Mm.
You internalize it as I am powerless and vulnerable. And you apply it to everything. And that's what trauma does. Yeah, trauma is internal.
Right. Well, Mark, you discussed a little bit your background too, what you went through as well. Did you want to share anything? Did you find anything similarity to the situation that Sarah's been through?
Totally. There were times at my school where my trousers didn't quite fit properly, where they were what we would call in the UK divorcing your ankles. My parents did their best they possibly could for me. It's not a reflection of them, but I did get heavily bullied about the way I looked, about my sexuality before I knew it myself. And I could totally relate to what Sarah was saying about not having things that other children had at school. Like they would have the best pair of trainers, or my trainers wouldn't be quite as good. These things really do affect your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and it does stay with you later down the line. So what Sarah is doing with her techniques and skills is really needed, because it's like the wounds have healed, but the scars are still very much there later in life.
Right. Great point, because it seems like when you're in that circumstance where you're feeling disapproved by your peers, you are put into a vulnerable state where you're looking for approval. And as you're looking for approval, if an adult comes into the situation, it's easier for them to take advantage of that moment, right? And then use this need for approval, especially for a kid who's been without, to take advantage of that, and then the sexual abuse begins.
Oh, you are absolutely spot on with that children who don't have, and again, like Mark said, nothing against my parents. They were amazing. They did their best with who they were and what they had. This is nothing to do with them. But children who are vulnerable in a certain situation are very, very open to predators for sure.
Mm.
It's like children, even in this day and age, you wouldn't believe there are children who are out on the streets, who are hungry, who are cold, and someone befriends them and offers them food.
To the point where it's so insidious, to the point where they would rather be involved in a sexual abuse situation than be left starving out in the street. It's so uncomprehendable that a lot of these children that are going through what you just said, Sarah, on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about more about this when we get back from break, because this is our vulnerable. This is the vulnerable out there, and who steps up? If not us, who? Because who's their advocate? How does a 2-year-old make their own decisions? How does a 6-year-old make their own decisions what to do if they're just trying to live, eat, survive? And then the predators come in. So that's what we're talking about, guys. We're talking about the predators. We're talking about the victims. We're talking about these sexual abuse that's occurring. That's not just rampant, but it's epidemic at this level. At least the light's being shone on it now, where everyone could see what's been going on and what continues and what we could do about it. We're talking to, of course, my co-host, Mark Stephen Pooler, where we're talking to Saras Griffiths. She's a sexual abuse trauma expert, and much more to come, guys. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Good day, planet Earth. Michael Don Miguel Litton here in Roswell, GA. Join me every other Friday at 6 p.m. for the Ride the Vibe Show, the show where creative folks have the opportunity to share the genesis and power of their creativity, where they can intend having their talent being expressed all over the planet. Find my show on WDJY 99.1 FM on the United Intentions Spreaker channel, iTunes, Stitcher, and many more. You can also find my show on social media on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as United Intentions, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Jump on the wave and ride the vibe. It's a cool way for getting the creative juices flowing. Cheers to a groovy day. And remember to always ride the vibe.
All right, we are back with sexual abuse trauma expert and hypnotherapist Saras Griffiths, and we're also with our co-host Mark Stephen Pooler. He's a radio host and best-selling author. So, Mark, I'm really excited about having you on, and I love the guests you're picking up and the serious topics such as we're talking about here. And, we're leading into the vulnerable out there and the children who are the vulnerable. Who's their advocate? Who can speak on their behalf? And often there is no one. And if there is, they're so scared to death to share what's happening because of the threats and the shame that these children bring in by the nature of the acts of this type of sexual abuse at such a young age, that they're not ready for it. They're not. No one's ready for that at any level. I mean, it's hard enough as an adult to deal with this, right? Not to mention a child. It's almost unforgivable in many ways. And whatever your religious background is, it seems like how do you forgive somebody who puts a child through this type of process? Other than looking at what's going on in that state of the mind of that abuser, most of them are, my experience, have been abused themselves. And what happens is people either act out by abusing other kids, or they act in by hurting themselves or making very bad decisions and getting into drugs, whatever. Which Sarah did you first go through when all this came to light for yourself?
My abuse, I worked for sexual abuse, but my abuse was actually the bullying at school.
The bullying, yeah,
so
gotcha.
I didn't
Gotcha.
actually have
Not the sexual abuse. Yeah, but I mean, when you acted out, did you bully other kids?
I probably tried to.
All right. Well, that's good that you admitted it. I mean, I was a bully at times. I just went along with the crew, and this what you did, and I was bullied at times too. I mean, it was just kind of part of the process, right?
And it's funny because this is something that I only remembered quite recently. But I also remember that you do it to take the spotlight off yourself, but you feel terrible. I remember it felt terrible to me.
Yeah.
And I really was, it's just this, it's like you were saying earlier, it's this whole response to survive. I need to take the spotlight off me because this is killing me internally. I feel terrible. I need someone else to take some of this,
right.
Which is awful.
I can understand that too as well, Sarah, because I started to play up and be really naughty and really cheeky. And I was masking how unhappy I was inside and how miserable I was. And people would just see me as a problem child. And it wasn't. It was because I was so being heavily bullied that I started to play up. My education was really bad because of it. And like you say, you could take it out on other people because hurt people.
And often it sounds like more even yours is probably more so you acted in where you were doing self-destructive behavior, and that to me is probably from any type of abuse, and of course we'll focus on sexual today, but any type of abuse, that is probably the most the worst consequence of abuse is how when we acted in, because we make from that point on decisions on a daily basis, conscious and unconscious decisions that's going to lead us to making bad choices and bad behavior, hence a horrible, often a very nightmarish type of life. You know, it may seem fun or nice for that moment of that distraction, but the consequences are so serious and impact ourselves on these decisions. And they keep going. They keep making those same decisions based on that one event or multiple events, whatever it may be. And it seems like, Sarah, from your experience, as you now counsel kids, people with sexual abuse, that you see that probably more often than ever before.
Oh, the whole thing about it is that abuse like that fundamentally changes who a person is. And funny enough, I was doing some training on this week about the importance of how we have to change our attitude and understand that people who are abused would be very different if it had not happened to them. So if we took the abuse aside and we said, who would this person have been if this had not happened to them? And when you're talking about sexual abuse, what would they go on to achieve? What would they do with their life? What kind of relationships would they have? So many questions around if this hadn't happened to them. And I can apply that to my life as well. I mean, I turned things around. It took me a long time. But when I look back and I say, if that hadn't happened to me, who would I have been? I would have been completely different. It fundamentally changes who we are. The impact, the ripple effect, it's beyond words. You can't even comprehend it.
Mm. Yeah, it's that's where the real crime is you, and you could almost say, and because you're not our past, and we could transform anything, which you're going to share in a little bit of some of the things that we can do. However, you basically ruin lives. The lives are ruined to where they got to deal with the psychological impact of what occurred to them for the rest of their lives. And often it's half a life is gone and they're realizing the self-sabotage behavior they've been doing based on the incident that occurred. So when this happens at a younger age, it's even more hard, it's even more challenging to turn this around, isn't it, Sarah?
It is, because the younger you are when you experience a trauma, you have no foundation to refer back to. Let's say you have all positive experiences up until the age of 12. Well, by then you have a very, very good idea of who you are. You've established some values and some boundaries. You've got your blueprint of who you are. So if something happens then, you can refer back to your blueprint and recreate it, you know, much more easily. If something happens to you when you're very young, you don't have that. If something happens when you're 2 or 3, you don't have that foundation to go back to. What's happening to you then is who you are as far as you are concerned. That you see there's a big difference there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very much so. You know, I just think, you know, the experiences with the approval and then the abuse and it's confusing. It's so confusing to the child because there's pleasure involved often, and then there's pain and shame. And it's really turns these kids upside down on how to look at life from a perspective of a healthy perspective. You know, and I see that, you know, can you share maybe some stories of some more traumatic stories of where some of the kids never come out of this?
well, obviously they don't come out of it, and I end up, let's say, with people who are in their 50s coming to me, and they even feel bad that this has impacted, that they feel guilty for being impacted in this way. So you have someone who presents with extreme anxiety, who is terrified of everyone and everything. And when we start to talk about it and the abuse comes up, they're apologizing and saying, well, I don't understand why this is still affecting me. It was such a long time ago. And this is a person who is completely destroyed and is apologizing for what happened to them because they haven't handled it too well. I mean, it's ludicrous that the trauma on the internal system, this is what we have to understand. The event happens outside of someone, the trauma happens inside.
And then there's the shame. Then there's the shame and the embarrassment. Yeah. People don't talk about these things. If you have had that happen to you, you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to feel shame. So it's good that we're talking about topics like this to let people know there are people out there that can help you. You can talk to someone and do something about it to heal, because it is a shameful thing for people to admit that it's happened to them, isn't it, Sarah?
Well, and the shame just doesn't come from there. The shame comes from the abuser tells the person it was their fault. Oh, you're so beautiful, you made me do this. Oh, you left the bathroom door open, so you made me do this. Oh, you looked at me a certain way. You made me think that you wanted this. The messages are so confusing, and the messages are given over and over and over. And the victim actually believes this. The victims, it's not logical in the logical mind, but in the emotional traumatized state, the victim believes that they did something, or that they were not good enough, that they weren't worthy, they were worthless, and that this is why this happened to them.
You know,
it comes up all the time.
All the time, and this is called subconscious programming, especially at a young age, and this abuse is so deeply rooted in these neural pathways of abuse that you're right. The child's looking at what's upside. He looks to see things upside down. What is up is down, and it is not only just confusing. It's almost to rewrite a subconscious belief takes work. It takes being conscious of it. It takes doing the process, and just enough for us as humans by just growing up and surviving. Right now, you pile on physical, sexual, emotional abuse on high, serious levels, such as sexual abuse. It's almost nearly impossible to reroute that unless you have an awakening in reference to consciousness, and then you start down that road. What are the success rates? Do you have success rates on children who do finally acknowledge their abuse?
I mostly work on adults. Mostly the people that come to me are adults, but with the work that I do, this is why I love hypnosis. Because when someone is in hypnosis, we can access all of the emotion and the perceptions that have been caused by the trauma. So we can access how they feel about themselves, and we can show them that it's not real, it's not logical, it was you then, it's not you now, and we can very, very quickly rewire the neural pathways. It's amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal what we can do.
It is. And when we get back from this break here, Sarah and Mark, let's take it to that level. Let's show there is hope from sexual abuse, from this horrible negative programming at a young age, even to adult. And it's never too late to uncover and pull back the sheets here and see exactly what occurred and what we can do now to start reprogramming our success in dealing with and experiencing a happy, enjoyable, healthy life from abuse and beyond abuse. So, guys, we're talking with my co-host, Mark Stephen Puller, today. And of course, we're speaking with the sexual abuse trauma expert, Saras Griffiths, and all calling from the UK. Come on, how exciting is this? This is technology at its finest. But get off the TV and stop gaming people out there, right? In moderation, please, moderation. We'll be right back. We'll see you in a minute. A lot more to come.
Are you ready to be the hero of your own story? It's time to put the power of your health back into your hands. Join us for our free 25-day journey to get your life back now from chronic illness. Our doctors and experts will guide you back to optimal health.
I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a scientist. I'm a 16-year survivor. I was given 3 months to live in 2001. I had cancer in the breast, the lymph, the brain, and the lung. And I was told I might live 5 months if I did the double mastectomy, the chemo, and the radiation. And so it became a very basic question to me: is if I've only got 3 months, how do I want to live, and how do I want to die? And I decided I didn't want to live or die with surgery, chemo, and radiation. So I decided I'd just stay as healthy as I could and as long as I could and live vibrantly. And I decided I was going to go with the girls. So a comment about the girls and the boy. These are very personal decisions, and again, the decision I made, I felt like it was really just the easiest decision. I just didn't want to go through the surgery. So call me selfish, but the girls are still here. I'm still here. 16 years later. So how can my tools help you? Well, I'm a survivor of 3 death sentences and 3 other chronic diseases.
Go to www.getyourlifebacknow.live and begin your journey today.
All right, we are back live on air on the UI Media Network. You know, we just heard Facebook's down, so if you listen to us on the app or on the radio or the many plethora of venues like iHeartRadio and Spreaker and all that jazz, Facebook's down, you know, and is that crazy? That's just, you know.
I like it.
You like it, huh? Facebook time is up.
Time is up. That's an inside joke.
Yeah, I know. But, guys, we're talking with Saras Griffiths. She's a sexual abuse trauma expert, hypnotherapist, and also an author, and author of a book called Unlikely Seven Figures Entrepreneur, right? That's the name of it, Sarah? Oh, there you go. Say it again.
The Unlikely Seven-Figure Entrepreneur.
Gotcha. And, of course, we're here with Mark Stephen Pooler, who's not only our radio host, but he's also a best-selling author as well. And we're talking about topics a lot of people don't talk about. The shame, the repercussions, and the consequences of abuse, and how it's a lifelong, I don't say burden, but a lifelong experience that you got to deal with. You know, some people, I've spoken to people who wouldn't change whatever they went through because they wouldn't be who they are today if it wasn't that experience. You know, if people get to that point of healthy understanding of that, you know, that's incredible, actually. But there's many, if not most, or rather would never had that experience. And where would they be today? What they would be doing? Who knows? And, you know, we can't go back time in that sense, at least not now, that I know of now. But we can go back and change our experience through programs like NLP and some of these solutions that you're going to be talking about now, Sarah. So what do you find the most effective way to truly reprogram yourself to deal with this type of abuse?
Okay, so the reason I use the methodology that I do, which is rapid transformation therapy, and basically I use hypnosis and I combine it with more traditional talk therapies like CBD, cognitive behavior therapy, and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And for me, RTT, the combination of those things, it's like a super therapy. It's like therapy on steroids because we're actually, in the hypnosis, we're talking to the part of the mind that has all the perceptions and all the emotions about everything. These are all the things that you don't know in your logical mind. So you can't heal them with normal talk therapy because you don't know they're there. So we access them in hypnosis, And the mind in that state is very suggestible, and it's very, very easy then to override the main neural pathway, the thoughts you have about yourself, and change them from thoughts and perceptions that don't serve you to ones that do. It's phenomenal. It's amazing.
Because, Sarah, with abuse, it leads to lots of mental health problems, doesn't it? And you yourself, you tried to commit suicide. You've had your own dark side. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and then the transformation? And have you used these therapies on yourself to help you heal as well?
Yeah, the reason I actually started using this therapy was because after like a long time, after about 5-6 years of normal NLP, CBT, I'd made some progress, but I was still really caught up in my old stories. And then I found out I was looking for, I thought there has to be a faster way, because I had started coaching people because I was successful in business by then. And I just thought, I don't want, my own journey was so long and so painful. I wanted a faster way for my clients. And I discovered RTT. So I watched what was happening with it. I studied it. I decided I have to get qualified in this. This is the answer.
What does RTT stand for, Sarah?
Rapid Transformation Therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it does. The name of it is so spot on. And it was really towards the end of last year when I was completing my training, and I went to a live 12-day event for all of the in-person training. And I had RTT myself, like over a period of a few days, and the shift was incredible. I just could not believe what I was experiencing. I would have a session, and at the end of the session, I realized I felt completely different about myself, and that things I had been thinking, things I had thought were gone. I was a different person coming from a different place. And the amazing thing was that about a week in, I realized that some very serious physical problems that I'd had for a couple of years had gone. I had serious headaches, they'd gone. I had pain all across my neck and shoulders, it had gone. And I had a right arm that I could hardly use. And I was doing all of those things, no pain. And once I healed my emotional hurt and really got rid of it, all the physical symptoms went. And that's what people don't understand. So many of the physical symptoms that are presenting today have an emotional root. And when we deal with the emotion, the physical symptoms go.
I would go as far, Mark and Sarah, to say that all physical ailments, manifestations come originally from an emotional or a cognitive perspective, and it's in our energetic field initially. If we don't deal with it on an energy level, because thoughts and feelings actually have physical properties, they're frequencies, they have physical properties, and it's in an energy state. And then if we don't deal with those emotions, in my experience, it will eventually come to the matter and come to the physical aspect, or at least be put into our tissues. It actually gets stored, this frequency of energy and thoughts and emotions get stored in certain tissues of our body. That's why people have like backaches or stomach aches or heart aches or whatever it may be, because we're not dealing with the emotional aspect of what we've been through or how we're interpreting something that we've been through. And I believe that it does exactly what you just experienced. But that's just my experience, with the integrative doctors that I work with.
I agree with that totally, yes.
I see it in my clients all the time. And when I have clients who present to me with severe physical problems, especially if they're to do with the gut, IBS, Crohn's, that sort of thing, fibromyalgia, anything autoimmune, headaches, backaches, and especially if they're medically unexplained, I just tell my clients, oh, don't worry. When we deal with your emotional, when we get to the emotional root cause and we deal with it, that will go. And even if they don't believe me, it goes.
Sarah, a lot of people self-medicate or use therapies that don't work. Can you tell us the points of difference of the therapies, what you do?
Yeah, so I think there's two things about my therapy that my clients really love. Now, when you're talking about trauma, I think one of the things that is really difficult for people, and the reason people don't seek therapy, is because they think they have to go back through all of the trauma. And I'll have people say to me, I've had 6 therapists, I've had to tell my story 6 times. That's just awful. For me, all of my results come from understanding how this has made you feel. I don't need the details of what happened to you. I don't need you to tell me exactly what happened. So for me, people don't need to revisit their trauma for me to heal them, and that is
That's
a
big.
huge plus for
That
people.
that is everything right there, because I listen. I have a doc that I work with, and I was trying to tell my brother's 10 years sober. He goes to AA every day, and he's just he's living that good life in the sense. But you also mentioned that but also there's a box, when you have to revisit and re-experience your trauma. And in AA, you do. You say, "Hi, my name's Tim Ray. I'm an alcoholic," and then you tell your story to the new people coming in. So you're constantly telling your story, what you've been through, and almost as like they're being defined. That is who they are in many ways, and they do. They define that for themselves, and I understand it works because it keeps them from drinking. I understand that, but we're going down those same neural pathways from day one all the time and reinforcing that more and more and defining ourselves by that more and more. So I think there's a point where there may be an unhealthy attachment to that, where they may not grow into whoever they're supposed to be becoming. They stay being the alcoholic.
That's a great point, Tim. That's a really great point.
I mean, let's say AA does amazing work. Obviously, it's there.
Effective,
it's very, very successful. Obviously, when you're talking about sexual abuse, addiction, there's a huge number of people that end up addicted. And again, it comes from the way they feel about themselves. Every addict ever feels that they are not enough or rejected. I'm not enough, so I will fill myself up with X. X doesn't work, so now I need more.
Right.
And it just goes on. And it comes from, it's an internal trauma. And when I can deal with addicts in the same way, heal the internal trauma, get someone feeling on a really, really deep level that they are enough, they always have been, they always will be, and suddenly they don't need anything outside of themselves.
Yeah. I agree totally. Obviously, I'm an ex-drug addict, and I've shared my story on this show before. I was addicted to crack cocaine and heroin, and it's self-worth, self-esteem. When you're an addict, you don't have any self-worth or self-esteem. It's your belief systems which lead to making bad choices. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, Sarah.
Yeah, and guys, as you said you got to fill yourself with X, but there's a whole alphabet of distractions and addictions that you could pull from. All the way from food, things that you have to live, right? And so it is really, do you find when people make this transition, I know using your rapid transformation program is great. I love it because you don't have to hear the story. You just got to go where the feeling is, and I do this all the time. I'll hear people tell me their dreams, and I'll do some dream interpretation. I'm like, really, it's not so much important of what actually happened, because it's all symbolic. What's important is how'd you feel when that happened. Those feelings is what's critical of understanding and releasing those frequencies in those tissues of where they laid and been manifested, right?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you bring in, and Mark, you may chime in on this as well, how do you bring in higher power, God, Goddess all there is, the miraculousness of when you're in that grace, how people's lives are transformed? How does that even apply in this type of work that you do?
I don't bring it in that way, because this is all about self. This is about knowing that you are enough. People who are recovering from abuse, they have to feel safe. They have to know that they have control, and that they are safe and able in all situations is how they need to feel. But I think then it moves into a spiritual realm when people recover and they start to experience abundance of self, abundance of life, and a joy of life, and a joy of giving, and of people. And they're just flooded with love for themselves and love for other people. And then they start to give from that abundance. And that's an amazing place to get to.
And Mark, I want to hear your take on that. So remember what you said, because we're going to take a quick break, but I want to hear your take on that, because I personally think that, and when we get back, we'll talk about that the work you're doing is in the flow, is of God. And I'll connect the dots, or try to connect the dots, guys, with Saras Griffiths and, of course, with Mark Stephen Puller. We're talking about, in such an incredible topic, sexual abuse, and transforming these emotions and living a life of reaching your greatness finally. I mean, how exciting is that, guys? So stay tuned. More to come. Fascinating information. We'll be right back.
No matter who you are, I'm gonna love you like I love myself. Treat you like I really care. You're not better than me. I'm not better than you. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Andrea, and I'd like to welcome you to my show, The Soulful Family, addressing modern-day family dynamics from unique perspectives. We cultivate self-aware parents, discuss unconventional ways to raise conscious children, and create healthy family dynamics. I've had many spiritual experiences that have developed my intuition, and as a result, I've been supporting people awaken and return to their true selves through my techniques for more than 25 years. But my proudest moment? Raising my two sons, Hayden and Gabriel, into happy, healthy, and successful contributing members of society. And that is what has inspired me to create my show. A shift from power by force to a state of authentic power. And as we all shift from the old paradigm and embrace our true selves, our experiences of the physical world we live in will change. You can catch my show on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WDJY 99.1 FM and on WTTA 101.2 FM. You can also watch me on Facebook Live at United Intentions and listen to my show on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Talk10FM.com, and many other platforms. And don't forget to download the UI Media app at uimediaapp.com, where you can also listen and watch my show anytime from anywhere in the world. However you participate, as a listener, calling in live on air, or becoming a sponsor, let's create healthy, soulful family dynamics together.
All right, we are back on the Good Intentions Show. I'm Tim Ray, your co-host today, along with Mark Stephen Puller, my new best friend and radio co-host here. And we're talking to Saras Griffiths. She's a sexual abuse trauma expert. And before we left off, we'll talk about God here in a second. But you did say there was two things, Saras, that's different about the therapy that you do. What's the second one?
Yeah, so the second one is I make it my mission. Like, some people have been in therapy for years, spent thousands and thousands of dollars and got nowhere. And with what I do, I make it my mission to have a one-session shift.
Man, you're gonna, these poor psychotherapists, they're gonna go out of business, because they make their money on year after year to year to sit there and hear your problems, right? Well, good for you. That's wonderful.
I'm not saying that I can totally cure someone in one session, but in the first session, we always get a big shift.
Right.
Always.
Well,
that's why I love that.
And that's ongoing. I mean, because it's not just like an inspiration shift. You're talking about an internal transformation of letting go, because it's all about letting go of these frequencies, right? Or transmuting these frequencies. That's probably even a better word.
And even if it's a shift around understanding that it wasn't your fault,
right?
That you weren't to blame.
Right.
And there are so many ways. It depends on the client. I give the client what they want. It's always about what the client wants, but I always get a big shift in the first session. And then we can build on that because suddenly the client has hope. They believe that they can achieve something. So we establish a foundation in the first session that we can really build on because they've seen a change. They've understood something in a different way. Really important.
Wow. You gonna say something, Mark?
Going back to what we was talking about before the break, I was just going to say, sometimes you do have to admit yourself that you've got a problem. Same with addiction. It could be the same with abuse. I'm not as experienced as abuse, more of addiction and bullying. But you've got to admit you have a problem before you seek help. So there's got to be people out there that they need to face those inner demons a little bit themselves and admit that they need help and they need support. And you've got to make those choices yourself. So I'm sure Sarah gets clients when the client feels happy that they're ready to go and face those problems. Am I correct in saying that, Sarah?
Yeah, and sometimes they come to me when they're not, and that's fine because I can't help someone who isn't in the right place. I'm not going to start working with someone if I don't think that they're ready to receive what we can do together. And sometimes they're not, but then I can hopefully prepare them to maybe go away and come back another time, just instill something in them. Because a lot of people, especially if they've had different therapies for years that haven't worked, they don't believe that anything can. And that's devastating. That's terrible for me.
It is, because, most people are conditioned to believe it's hard work. You got to go through the gut-wrenching, revisiting all the trauma and day after day sharing the same, making one little step forward. But that's not reality. That's not your reality, what you experience when you're shifting people's lives.
I'm not saying it's not hard. And normally we end up in tears. But we end up in tears and we've got a big shift. We've got a result for it.
Yeah.
The next session, we're going to start in a different place. We've moved on.
Right.
That it's building blocks. And now we're on block 2. We don't start on 1 and go back to -1 or start on 1 and stay on 1 for 10 weeks. We're progressing all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Plateau. It's you don't plateau, and it's leaps more so than just building blocks. You're leaping from from rock to rock, right?
Yeah, and then we let the client rest because as you change, change is scary for people. Change is hard, and suddenly they find themselves in a new place with not knowing what these emotions and everything are and who they are. So I do coaching around that as well. Of course, my whole program, it's not just the session and off you go. That's another point with me. I'm always available to my clients. They don't have to wait for the next session.
Because you could Zoom, you could have clients all over the world. You could Zoom in. You don't have to be in person, right?
Most of my clients are in America. I work virtually all over the world.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. And that's just a whole new level of, like you said, coaching and releasing, and you're able to walk people through. And it seems like your intuition is a key piece in the success of this.
Intuition is invaluable. I always feel like what I do is something that I've learned, but there is a gift and a skill to it as well. And the number of times intuition has played a pivotal role where I just feel something and I say it to the client and the client just said, oh my God, that's it.
Sarah's Intuition. I think that's a name of a new book, Sarah. You could be working on describing that process. So this is great. People want to get in touch with you. The best way to get in touch with you, and you have a gift for our listeners and viewers, right? Before it gets too late, let me share that with everyone.
I do have, and I think the easiest thing is if they email me, because what they can do, I'll give them a link and they can download a free copy of my book. And then I'll also give them links to my website and things like that. But they can get a free copy of my book and get a really good idea of who I am and my early life. I think it's good. I like my clients to know who I am.
Okay, well, tell us what that link is.
Email.
Yeah, tell us what the email is, and then we'll post it. Otis will put it on the board.
Sarah, so it's the name Sarah with an H at the end. Sarah@sallyg.com.
That's easy enough.
That's the name Sally with a G.com. Sarah@sallyg.com.
Wonderful. So, Mark, part of recovery, I mean, you've been through the ringer yourself, and I love people. I hate to say this is going to sound, I don't know, sadistic maybe. I love people who have gone through this type of pain and suffering because when they come out of it, they're so much more deeper, they have so much more character. They have so much more appreciation. It's like the prodigal son, they have so much more of an understanding of the grayness of life. And we're not living this black and white, this simple, he's right and you're wrong, whatever it may be. It's just, it's an unsureness and a wiser unsureness rather than a confident ignorance. You know what I mean? And so both of you had this experience, and maybe you guys could, for the last couple of minutes, Mark, you go first, and I want to hear if Sarah could close it out. How your intuition, if you want to call it, and I believe intuition is God speaking through us, or God's source, whatever it is, but how have you seen your intuition develop to who you are today? Or have you?
I think everything I've been through has made me stronger. It's made me the person I am today. I wouldn't change my past. It was hard when it was happening. Me and Sarah do have very similarities with our stories. And now I'm very strong. I'm very, very intuitive. I am very, very spiritual. I sense things. I'm very sensitive. And like Sarah, we've both had bad pasts. She has a past of suicide, bullying, me bullying and drug addiction. Sarah is speaking on stages all over the world. She's interviewed celebrities as well, haven't you, Sarah? And it's just great that you can know that your past and present circumstances, it doesn't matter. You can still have hope for the future. And me and Sarah are both examples of that.
And so, Sarah, what about your intuition? I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't change anything.
Oh. Well, I'm very glad it's the person I am today, and I wouldn't be this person without that, because the person I am today is I am so certain and so sure of myself, and that is when intuition can really come in, because I trust myself. I have no doubt, and that's a really great place to be for my clients. Obviously, I have huge understanding and empathy for whatever they're going through. I totally understand the trauma response and how it affects a life, but it's this trust and belief in myself. And when I'm able to tell my clients when they don't think they can make the shift and change, and I'm able to say to them, well, 9 years ago, I nearly killed myself because I had no self-belief. That's an amazing thing for them to see, because they're not expecting me to say that, because they see me and think I've always been this way. But I've done this huge transition. I did it over 9 years. I want my clients to do it over weeks and months, not years.
Well, they're very blessed to have Sarah's intuition leading them through and beyond their abuse or beyond their trauma in their life. And thank you, Sarah, for being out there, and thank you for changing lives for the better and the world. As you change one life, you change the world. And Mark, great co-hosting with you here. You guys stay on the line for 1 second once we close out. But Sarah, last thing, people could reach you at sallyg.com. They'll also go to your email. They can check your website out and learn more and get the free gift, guys. Come on. I mean, this free's good. Free's in, right? So wonderful information. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget, we have Ride the Vibe tonight with the guitar Stephen, I always say his name wrong, Gustafsson. Well, that's an interesting one. From the band 10,000 Maniacs. How cool is that? Check it out, 6 o'clock. Okay, guys, we'll see you later. Take care. Adios.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Good Intentions Show on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Be sure to log on to unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions, one intention at a time. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, live life with intent. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.